forgotten Germany may have many vicissitudes, but they...
But if this is true of the individuals in the community, how can it be false of the community as a whole? If shown a certain way, a community may take it. If not, it will never find it. And the ways are to a large extent indeterminate in advance. A nation may obey either of many alternative impulses given by different men of genius, and still live and be prosperous, just as a man may enter either of many businesses, only the prosperities may differ in their type. But the indeterminism is not absolute. Not every man fits every hour. Some incompatibilities that are given genius may come either too early or too late. Peter the Hermit would now be sent to a lunatic asylum. John Mill in the 10th century would have lived and died unknown. Cromwell and Napoleon need their revolutions, Grant his civil war, and Ajax gets no fame in the day of telescopic-sighted rifles. To express differently an instance which Spencer uses, what could a Watt have effected in a tribe which no precursive genius had taught to smelt iron or to turn a lathe? Now, the important thing to notice is that what makes a certain genius now incompatible with his surroundings is usually the fact that some previous genius of a different strain has warped the community away from the sphere of his possible effectiveness. After Voltaire, no Peter the Hermit. After Charles IX and Louis XIV, no general Protestantization of France. After the Manchester School, a Beaconsfield success is transient. After a Philip II, a Castellar makes little headway, and so on. Each bifurcation cuts off certain sides of the field altogether, and limits the future possible angles of deflection. A community is a living thing, and in words which I can do no better than quote from Professor Clifford, it is the peculiarity of living things not merely that they change under the influence of surrounding circumstances, but that any change which takes place in them is not lost but retained, and as it were built into the organism to serve as a foundation for future actions. If you cause any distortion in the growth of a tree and make it crooked, whatever you may do afterwards to make the tree straight, if you cause any distortion in the growth of a tree and make it crooked, whatever you may do afterwards to make the tree straight, the mark of your distortion is there. It is absolutely indelible. It has become a part of the tree's nature. Suppose, however, that you take a lump of gold, melt it, and let it cool. No one can tell by examining a piece of gold how often it has been melted and cooled in geologic ages, or even in the last year by the hand of man. Anyone who cuts down an oak can tell by the rings in its trunk how many times winter has frozen it into widowhood, and how many times summer has warmed it into life. A living being must always contain within itself the history, not merely of its own existence, but of all its ancestors. Every painter can tell us how each added line deflects his picture in a certain sense. Whatever lines follow must be built onto those first laid down. Every author who starts to rewrite a piece of work knows how impossible it becomes to use any of the first written pages again. The new beginning has already excluded the possibility of those earlier phrases and transitions, while it has at the same time created the possibility of an indefinite set of new ones, no one of which, however, is completely determined in advance. Just so.
Absolutely.
Just so, the social surroundings of the past and present hour exclude the possibility of accepting certain contributions from individuals, but they do not positively define what contributions shall be accepted, for in themselves they are powerless to fix what the nature of the individual offering shall be. Thus, social evolution is a resultant of the interaction of two wholly distinct factors, the individual deriving his peculiar gifts from the play of physiological and infrasocial forces, but bearing all the power of initiative and origination in his hands, and second, the social environment, with its power of adopting or rejecting both him and his gifts. Both factors are essential to change. The community stagnates without the impulse of the individual. The impulse dies away without the sympathy of the community. The evolutionary view of history, when it denies the vital importance of individual initiative, is then an utterly vague and unscientific conception, a lapse from modern scientific determinism into the most ancient Oriental fatalism. The lesson of the analysis that we have made, even on the completely deterministic hypothesis with which we started, forms an appeal of the most social surroundings of the past and